Hello, Mr. French. How are you today?
Good to see you. How are things?
Um, I'm surviving.
That's a good thing. Better than the reverse.
Better than the alternative, I suppose.
Very much. Very much. What excitement and news with you?
Nothing. I'm very frustrated because of this lockdown. I can't even get out and walk with my friends
Yeah,
and I'm stuck here. And I'm thankful to have a job that I can do from home and
that's good
make,
news.
yes, make plenty of money, but even that it's so slow. The virus situation has even shut down the kind of work I do for the most part. So sit there for hours waiting for the phone to ring.
That's rough.
Yep,
That is
it's
rough. And
very tedious.
there. Well, again, as I say, hopefully, we'll get through this together and it'll just take
Yeah.
so long.
How are you guys doing over at your place?
Not too bad. I mean, the three of us being here, it's not nightmarish. We went out to we were able to find a trail in the middle of nowhere in Indiana that was completely person free there yesterday. So that was great.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's going to be one of those. It takes the time it takes.
Yeah.
Eh, I'm the oddity in that I kind of like the opportunities that this presents. Hello, Michelle. How are you doing?
Michelle, it's so good to see you.
Hey, how are you guys?
Uh,
Not too bad at all.
making it okay.
Mm-hmm.
How are you
Good.
doing?
Same. It's tedious sometimes.
Exact word I used earlier. Yes.
Yeah, it's it is Operation Enduring Boredom. I think, if you like.
Yep.
We're in a weird way. We're lucky to be the ones who get to be bored. I don't envy our friends who are at these emergency hospitals,
Oh, indeed.
or the folks who are literally having to meet the public day in day out in the food industry, who are lucky enough to have jobs, but still,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, there are better things to be doing with our lives than stuck in our own houses.
Yep.
I would certainly say. Any other excitement coming down the line? No? All fairly quiet?
Yeah. How are the plans coming for that online play
Macbeth,
reading we were discussing?
Macbeth. It moves. It moves at pace and it moves slowly. I think I have most of it cast. I want to double check with some people. I have, yeah, that's confirmed in both cases. Let me check. I'm just looking at how many parts do I need to actually fill? Because I'd like to have a unique person for each part, if at all possible.
Yeah. Certainly should be possible. I mean, there's certainly plenty of actors sitting around with nothing to do.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, I think I have to cast, considering I'm going to cast myself in whatever's left, I think I'm going to get to be Donal Bane, who has a line, sorry, I think 2 lines in the whole show, although he's in 4 scenes. So I think that may be the smallest part. There's a lord I have to cast.
Don't forget the messenger. If we're talking about Macbeth, the messenger who goes on screen, who comes on stage to say, "By the way, all your family's dead," and then just leaves and doesn't have any lines.
The queen, my lord, is dead. And then he gets off, or she gets off, as the case may be. And then whatever poor sap is left is Seaton, and he gets a beating about the whole matter. Yeah. I think I've got it almost cast. The plan is this weekend to send out messages to everybody as a group and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the cast. I'm probably going to cast the witches doing multiple different parts, as in having the witches as the manipulators, the murderers, the messengers, all these bits and pieces. basically pushing, poking, sowing seeds, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the rest of us get a part, a piece, all things going well. But it is going to be a case of figuring out who goes where and what have you. At the moment, let's see, wrong button, all these different buttons. Hello, Liz. How are you doing? Can you hear us? Sorry,
Yes,
I was
I can.
looking at Macbeth at the time. Do you want to be in Macbeth?
Sure, why not?
You foolish, foolish fool. Yes, I will put you in Macbeth. So to give you some, by the way, I'm going to touch my face because I haven't seen anybody for days. Yeah, isolation, touchy, 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 touchy. So apologies. You're going to have to deal with me touching my face.
That's all right.
I'm also scratching my arse from time to time, but you don't need to know when. To bring you up to speed, Liz, basically. Oh, sorry, Liz. This is Gary. This is Michelle.
Hi.
One of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pull together different people from all over, mostly Louisville, who have a liking for Shakespeare, and we're going to do Macbeth. And I'm going to either record you on a Zoom, where we've got a couple of people together, or get you to record scenes on a cell phone, in that awful portrait style, to sort of do a social distance Macbeth. Sort of one part reading, one part performance, many parts me going, oh God, why did I take this on? There's so much editing. I hate editing. That's why I direct. But that's the theory. And we'll do a couple of scenes a week. And maybe next week, if I can get my act together this weekend, I'm going to send out messages to everybody, or probably one big message to everyone saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. We'll do a table read next week, and then do a couple of scenes a week. Maybe in sequence, maybe not, depending on people's availability, things like that.
Okay.
This is the point at which you quietly back out.
Dude, I'm not doing anything. And Macbeth it's one of my favorites.
That helps.
Tragedy was my favorite, but it's my favorite tragedy, I think. So I'm game.
It's a fun one, in a weird way, where it's all terrible and everybody dies except like 3 guys. But as plays where everybody dies except 3 guys, this is a fun one. Macbeth is King Lear is too tragic, and Hamlet is too interesting to ever be fun.
Hamlet's too navel-gazy for me. That's my spicy hot take.
I don't know who else is coming. Normally we have. I was literally saying. Normally we have Claire. Hello.
There
Claire.
she is. Oh, I was afraid we'd all run out of things to say.
Welcome aboard. Good to see you. So you know Michelle and you know Gary. This is Liz. Liz, this is Claire. I think
Nice to meet you, Liz.
that brings.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
I do my drinking during the day, so enjoy some water.
I'm drinking water too.
Liar, that's all vodka.
It's sparkling water with vodka.
I didn't realize water was sponsoring this get together.
Listen, Big Water are the major corporate at the moment in my neck of the woods. Yeah, no, and they've got money to burn. Anyway,
because they can always extinguish it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean it's very difficult for them to burn the money, but they have it to burn. Anyway, today we're going to have a bit of a chat about Much Ado, insofar as we can. I don't know if who managed to see it when it was on the Kentucky Shakespeare there over the week.
I did.
You did? Good.
I got to see it.
Before already, Claire, I take it.
No, I was very, very mad. Much Ado is the play that got me into theater. The first play I had a substantial role in, and I missed that. But to be fair, I was in London and saw 2 other versions of Much Ado About Nothing, so.
It seems to have supplanted
I don't feel sorry for you at all.
Yeah. I love the Maupins, though, and I've gotten to work with Greg recently, and he is hilarious and nerdy. I think if he and Martin ended up in a room together, they would just, talk for 7 weeks straight.
Yeah, I suspect we would bore the pants off everybody. Like
But you
arcane and
would be
banal audition.
so entertained.
Have you never met Greg?
No, funnily enough, I've seen him on stage a few times, but I don't know him.
No,
You guys would get along
that's
so
criminal.
well. So well.
We have to fix that. Yes, we have to fix that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen in due course. He is doing Much Ado as one of his Kentucky Shakespeare explorations in the near few weeks, I think. I don't have the money to do it myself, but I would imagine it's very good. Let me put this at a better angle so you can see the top of my classy t-shirt. I'll just hide it. But so there's also Much Ado coming up. I can't remember if it's coming from the National in Britain. No, the Globe might be showing Much Ado, I think, in the next little while as well.
No, it's not on their list to show.
Who is it that I saw somebody talking about it lately, and I can't remember whom. It'll probably it'll show up anyway as soon as I go off. It'll crop up in here, and I'll pass on word. Which can you remember which the Globe is showing in the near future?
Several.
Yeah, there's
There's
6 I think coming
A
up.
couple of them.
Merry Wives, Hamlet. I think it's about 6 that are going to rotate in the next few weeks.
I think it's Two Gentlemen.
Two Gentlemen is in there as well. Yeah, I remember that. Or is it Two Noble Kinsmen?
Two Noble Kinsmen.
Oh.
Yeah. I would normally get those mixed up. One of my few leads over my long acting career was in Two Gentlemen of Verona. Because, that's the one that people go, oh, yeah, that one. But, yeah, Hamlet's definitely in there, and makes sense that Merry Wives is as well. Either way, there's lots about and available at the moment, which is always a good thing. Has anyone not seen the Kenneth Branagh one from 1993?
I don't recall ever seeing it.
Okay, you don't think you've seen it either, Michelle? You've seen it though, I presume, Liz. You've seen it, Claire?
Yes. Emma Thompson is wonderful Beatrice.
I've seen so many versions of Much Ado, you have no idea. It's my favorite Shakespeare play.
I can't believe it. It's
Also would recommend the Joss Whedon. The Joss Whedon is surprisingly good.
Yeah,
It is very good. I liked it a lot.
I liked it, the slight updating of it.
I love the take on Dogberry.
Yes, that's my favorite take on Dogberry I've ever.
I can't remember that. I remember it was Ricky Lindholm she wasn't Don Pedro. She was Conrad or somebody like that in an interesting cross-gendering, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was Conrad.
I thought that was an intriguing take. This is a play that has gone on for years. I mean, I'm going to say that Liz and Claire, you're probably more expert on this than I. I've probably seen about a dozen productions of it myself. It was one of those ones that got done a lot. I saw the RSC do it in about 96. And watching that the director was watching every single moment of that 1993 Kenneth Branagh version. It was Alex Jennings was, what's his name? The main man.
Benedict.
I can't remember who played Beatrice. Save me life, I can't. So the important question I have to ask before we do anything. We're all agreed that the real villain is really Claudio, yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, Gary, you disagree? Looking for controversy here. I want to get this on CNN.
I was certainly not a fan of Don John, so I mean, he's the one that really plotted to put Claudio in such a terrible position.
He's a deliberate villain, but he knows what he's doing. He is the Richard III of the matter. Michelle, your thoughts? Oh, I should look this way because you're on my...
I have to admit that watching this again was very distracting because Greg was tweeting or whatever, was commenting all the way through it. And I cannot handle that. I just kept getting, distracted by everything that he was typing. And then Abigail would type some things too. So it was like being at a football game and being distracted by the cheers, I
hear you.
So
We-
I'm
we
not
will
going to have a
to
whole lot to say about the plot. I couldn't follow it.
Fair. We will have to have a discussion someday about Prospero's books and how that is a mental overload. I'm guessing Liz has seen Prospero's books by that chuckle.
Yeah, so the thing about Tempest, it's one of the plays I don't like watching very much because every director seems to take it as their personal responsibility to try to out-weird all of the other directors who have done Tempest. And I don't know why they bother, because no one is ever going to out-weird Prospero's books. It can't be done. It is the weirdest thing that's ever come out of Shakespeare, that I've seen at least.
I've seen weirder, but I've been also living in Europe. So just for the rest of you, Prospero's books is this. It's a really wonderful take on the play, and it focuses very much on the lead character Prospero, who was played by John Gielgud in one of his later roles. But throughout the film, there is a frame all around the edge of the screen. I should figure out the geography of how I do this, but there's a frame about the edge of the screen the whole way through, which has different things going on. And sometimes you've got split screens and loads of stuff going on. And to add to that, the only copy I've ever had to watch, which I watched a few times, had Hungarian subtitles. So there's so much going on the screen that I didn't drink at the time. I've never done the other stuff. But I get the impression I might know what it's like, having tried to watch that version of it with the Hungarian subtitles going along the bottom as well. Because there's so much going on, it's an overload. Much Ado is a little bit more straightforward. But it is, if you're reading the tweets or whatever, the messages as well.
Right. The comments, I guess, can be compared to Prospero's books, apparently.
Well, certainly to some degree. Did they have anything interesting or enlightening to say?
The comments?
Yeah.
No, it was all just like one-liners, and I just could not, keep
Yeah.
myself from reading them. So pretty soon I was lost and could not follow the plot. So I mean, it was very enjoyable watching all the actors. And all
Well, that is one thing I will always say with Kentucky Shakespeare is whether you like the play or not. And Liz watched our feed from the last time, so she has an idea how we felt. Whether you like it or not, it's always an entertaining production. They've gotten very good at that compared to what it was maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago when the last fellow was in charge, and it was.
Oh, that wasn't that long ago. I think it was 5 years.
It was only 5.
Maybe
Yeah,
6.
I think I saw 2 or 3 years of his tenure, and it was a case of no, I'm not excited enough to go out and see it. You're up in New York these days, Liz, am I correct in saying?
Yes.
How are you?
Presumably there is an outdoors in the Central Park or one of the other parks?
So actually, I'm not in New York right now. So before things started getting really bad, my brother also lives in New York, and my sister, who was visiting from Georgetown at the time, we sort of realized, it was probably going to get bad in New York, so we're in South Jersey right now, sort of all camping out together. And, it's been more than 2 weeks since we left, so we know we didn't bring the virus with us, and we're just sort of here. Yeah.
I have a couple other friends that are from the Kentucky area that live up in New York and are back visiting with family, which I think is smart. If you can, it's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you did in London big time. You got out if you could.
And then he wrote King Lear.
I mean, among other things, I think, did he also
mostly wrote
King
poetry.
Lear during an earlier plague?
Yeah, he mostly wrote poetry during the plagues. I was trying to verify if it was true that he wrote Lear, and he apparently wrote it that year, but it's not confirmed that he wrote it during the plagues. But his poetry, the writing of that is fairly directly correlated to plague years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can lower my ambitions to instead writing Shakespeare level sonnets.
Yes, which are awesome, but not as legendary.
Ah,
Okay, I have a tattoo on my back that has a number of songs on
Fair.
it.
So I presume there's an open air Shakespeare in New York that's any good, or 2 or 6 or something.
That's so much ado I saw that got me in the
There's
theater.
I mean, they're totally ripping off of Louisville. They've got this thing, Shakespeare in the Park. Like,
It's in a Central Park. Total rip
yeah,
We
right?
had Central Park first.
They even got the same guy to design that park. I know
Yeah. I actually did see Much Ado at Shakespeare in the Park this past summer. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to camp out in the park to get tickets, but I did it.
Wow.
And it was flipping phenomenal. I know PBS is going to be airing it again soon as they're part of like Hear Everybody Up event. And I highly recommend it. It's wonderful.
Who is their Beatrice?
Oh, what was her name? Danielle Brooks.
When I saw it just after I graduated from high school, so it would have been 2014. That's the play that got me into theater, and it was Shakespeare in Central Park in New York with Lily Rabe as Beatrice.
Nice.
Oh,
It was Danielle Brooks, who's from Orange is the New Black, if you know her from there. And it's an all-black cast. It takes place in Atlanta. It's just beautiful. It's just one of the best productions I've ever seen. Beatrice was phenomenal. Benedict was phenomenal. They made some very smart, very clever choices. It was a wonderful production.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, if you've got time, go check it out.
Well, as you say, if it's coming up on PBS again, because I missed it after you telling me I should watch it last time. What was I going to say? So you've seen quite a few, Liz. You've seen quite a few, Claire. Have you seen it before, Michelle?
I believe I saw that. Yeah, I saw that production when it aired, or when it not aired. When they.
You were in the studio when it was on, yeah.
When they produced it the first time, yeah.
Gary, had you seen it before?
But just the production in 2017. Yes, I saw that one. So yeah.
Okay, so we've got some primo experience just in the 2 squares below me and to either side. I don't know if you're getting the same angles with me. And to either side of me, we have some fresher experiences of it. So I'm going to turn to the people who are new to it, or comparatively new to it, who know this production. How did it rate for you? Did you like it? Did you care for it? What was it? Oh God, this is like As You Like It, only different. Sorry, in joke that this actually gets. So that's great. I can get away with that.
No, I liked it. Good story, obviously, and very well done. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I basically understood it even.
Yes. Yeah, you found it easier to follow story-wise.
Yes, I was actually able to follow the action and know what was going on. Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I do want to get Liz on As You Like It a little bit later, because she was making some really interesting points during the week. Not to put you on the spot. Sorry, you've just put you on the spot. Michelle.
Sure.
Michelle, even. Michelle.
Yes, sir. I totally, like I said, it's very entertaining. So
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
But on this occasion, the story bypassed you.
I just was distracted. That's all. And
That's allowed.
once I started going, down the vortex, it was like, okay, I'm going to continue reading these comments and enjoy that part of it. And I did.
Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, Shakespeare's job was to put bums on seats. Any, what would you call it? Any philosophical insights into the world we get, and they're there to be had. I won't say are completely accidental or incidental, but they aren't his main drive. So if you're enjoying yourself, hey, that's a win. Better than going, I hate this and I have to watch this for next week. So you've basically enjoyed it. I'm going to look to the 2 on the lower side of my monitor. I don't see you really smart. But with regard to this one, how did you find this production compared to the other ones you've seen? And tell us why you love this play specifically.
Who wants to go first? You. I volunteer you.
Dang. So I did enjoy watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just because I've seen so many Much Ado's and I spent the whole time thinking like what choices they might have made or not. I wasn't super drawn to this Benedict and Beatrice. I didn't. There were a lot
You're
of
not offending anybody.
Sorry.
You're not offending anybody. Be clear as you feel it.
I know you all are in the Louisville acting scene, so I don't know whose sister-in-law and brother-in-law I might be.
Anybody who has not revealed that so far, you deserve the grilling you're going to get.
Yeah, I just didn't care for this Benedict and Beatrice. But I will say it was a very good Don John, which is okay. Don John's damn near impossible to do well because he is literally just a cartoon cutout of a villain. So like the best you can hope for is pretty good, and that's what they got here. Yeah, pretty good. They had a decent Dogberry, which is also very, very difficult to pull off. Because I've seen some downright painful Dogberries. Part of it's just because, the entire jokes of Dogberry is, he says all these malapropisms, isn't that silly? And in Shakespeare's time, it was hilarious. And now, just what were you even saying? And they managed to pull off a decent Dogberry, which was, that's a feat. But I mean, for me, the whole draw of this play is Benedict and Beatrice. So if you don't have a really strong Benedict and Beatrice, then you're not going to have a strong play.
I think that's fair to say. I think it's very fair to say.
Yeah. As for what I love about this play, a lot of things. Number one, Benedict drinks more respect women juice than every other man in canon. Which is wonderful to see. To Beatrice, she's just so dang clever, and she gets the best lines. And their relationship, I mean, they're the template that Pride and Prejudice was based off of. And Pride and Prejudice is the template that every other romance is based off of. Like that whole, secretly hating each other, secretly loving each other, butting heads, coming together. It's what dreams are made of. And I love this is probably Shakespeare's most feminist play too, I think, which is part of why I love it. The whole, you should maybe listen to women before you listen to somebody who literally had a rebellion 2 seconds ago. And Shakespeare does a lot of subtle ways throughout the play where he threads in like how people just treat the hero like an object throughout, and how they're ultimately the ones with the egg on their face in the end because she's right. Anyway, it's a great play. I could talk about this for hours, but I don't. Claire, what did you think?
I really, really liked this production. It's not my favorite, but it's hard to count it as my favorite when there is like ones that I love for sentimental reasons, like the one that got me into Shakespeare, the one that I got to be a part of. But I think this was a very, very solid production. The worst one I actually saw was at the Globe, and they had white and or white passing people playing Mexicans and people of color in the ensemble, and it just made me cringe. So bad.
Ouch.
So it definitely wasn't the worst one that I saw. Yeah, and I saw that was the artistic director that's apparently good, but not for Shakespeare, and was fired like a week later. Yeah, definitely not the worst one I've seen. But I think it was really solid. I think it was kind of special. If you aren't part of the Louisville scene, the main actors, Gregory and Abigail, are actually married in real life.
Oh,
So it's actually,
Thanks for
it's
lack of
very
chemistry.
fun.
No, that's not fair.
It's very fun to see them in that role, getting to play out something, knowing that they're a couple in real life, especially after having seen them in like 12th Night, where she was Olivia and he was Malvolio.
Mm.
So like seeing fun reversals of that, multiple couples. I was working with this company in a spring tour, and there is a couple that's engaged that was playing father and son.
oh wow.
So that's kind of fun and wacky to see, but it's also kind of fun and wacky to see them in roles that mimic life in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, I really like getting to see them being able to play that. So I really liked their dynamic, but part of that comes from knowing them as a couple.
Yeah.
It makes it kind of special.
They're like our own Hepburn and Tracy, right?
Yeah. So that made
Love
it
to know
special.
what they would think of that, of being accused of that. That's either a great or a terrible thing, depending on your perspective. But that leads to a question then. So this is very much a local Shakespeare for a local audience. And I think it's good that we have very many more local actors in our local Shakespeare festival than we had maybe 10 years ago.
It used to be the last guy did not want to hire any local actors, and starting this coming season, it's all local.
Yeah. So the question I have then is that does part of the joke or part of the allure of the show being that we as an audience know who these people are in real life, does that make it better or worse? Because definitely with the Tracy Hepburn films over the years, that was definitely a part of the allure. When I was watching them as a kid, because Irish TV was many centuries behind everyone else, when we were watching these Hepburn and Tracy movies as a kid, my parents would point out, yeah, they had a thing together. Nothing more than that. We won't go into he's a staunch Catholic, so he's not divorcing his wife because they're actually blah, 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 blah. Nothing like that. But they had a thing together, and that made those movies better. Is that a good thing or a bad thing in the theatre? When, a local knowledge will improve it. Is it better for our local theatre or worse?
Mm-hmm.
What you said last time about how Shakespeare wrote for specific actors,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was happening in his day. And obviously the community where the play was being put on would have known those actors, would have enjoyed seeing them in the different roles. So we're living in a different world, where someone can tune in and watch a Louisville production, not having the benefit of knowing these actors is going to be a totally different experience, I think, than those of us who live here. So maybe I guess what I would say is that the way that Claire described it, seeing them in these roles, especially when we've seen them in other contrasting roles, or just being able to see their, their, what I think is extremely good acting ability, and seeing them do these different roles is a plus for us, obviously, because they're known and loved, and maybe not so much of a plus for someone like Liz, who's, tuning in and doesn't know the what we know about these actors. So anyway, I guess it just depends on how you see the purpose of the production.
And I'd also say I think it can be special and add something, as long as it doesn't become the only thing. Like if it was all like, oh, these people are a couple, so we're going to make them romantic leads in everything, that I think could start, I think that could start to get old very quickly. I think this one was kind of special because they are they are not the age of most romantic leads in Shakespeare. Much Ado About Nothing is almost one of the exceptions where you can have like a romantic comedy lead that can be traditionally played older. It would be
Okay.
weird if they were like, let's put them in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
I
But
come from a country where it's Peggy's turn for the lead, and she's always wanted to be Juliet. Peggy is 62 and toothless. She's always wanted to, and it's her turn.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring that side up, and I do want to get back to this question of the older romance, because one of my favorite plays is Antony and Cleopatra, and that is the classic older romance. And I've been very lucky to see Patrick Stewart and I think it was Harriet Walter in the roles, which was immense. But that's another discussion. That's later on in this discussion or another day's discussion. Gary, what's your take on the question of, you know, just having the local romance or the local features lead it?
Yeah, well, I was trying to put myself in the position of someone in the audience who did not know any of the actors on stage, and I think that they would have still enjoyed the production because it was a quality production, no doubt about that. And you know, I would say that Kentucky Shakespeare has a loyal audience, so probably most of the people who came to that production have seen Greg and Abigail, even if they don't know them personally. They know of them as actors and as part of the Shakespeare company, and have seen them in many other roles. And certainly they don't always play the romantic leads, and I'm sure they would not want to do that. You know, they love being stretched just as any other actor would. But you know, like Michelle said, I mean, for me, it added an extra element just because I love Greg and Abigail and I know them personally and I love to see them, you know, and I've seen them in several other contexts, not just as actors and not even just as Shakespeare actors. So I'm just a fanboy anyway. I love anything they do.
Cool.
But yeah, you know, I don't have other actors in those roles to compare them to as to, you know, whether they were excellent or just okay, or, you know, for me they were excellent, but
Well, I remember, so back when I lived in Louisville, I think they put on a production, I think it was Midsummer Night's Dream, and if I remember correctly, Abigail was Titania in that production. And I remember liking her in that role. So I'm not.
If this was the 2014 one, she did not play Titania. She played the wife of the Emperor of Athens.
Hippolyta.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, it's just they didn't click with me in these roles. And by the way, if they're your friends, I'm sorry if I said it.
No. And I didn't mean to discount your feelings about it because, like I said, it's like I think when you've got these core actors that many of us know or have worked with or whatever. I haven't worked with them yet. I'd love to someday. But there is that second dynamic of just being a Louisville audience, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's like, this is your favorite, you know, Shakespeare play. So it obviously has, you know, it's stood the test of time regardless of what cast there is. And so it, you know, it makes sense that it could be somewhat of a hindrance, like Martin was asking, if, you know, you've got these actors that have to kind of be put into these roles for the purpose of that community. And so it may hinder the play just because of those kinds of political or, you know,
local
community needs, you know, to happen. So yeah, it would be interesting to see a professional production where, you know, the roles are cast without any thought of, you know, what the community expects or something like that. So
I mean, again, I'm in an odd position because I've known this play 5 or 10 times before coming here. And the first year I was here, there were 3 different productions. Kentucky Shakespeare did one. Looking for Lilith did one, and somebody else did. I can't remember who. I don't think I saw the third one.
Probably Savage Rose.
I don't think it was, oddly enough. But there were three. I mean, there's so many bloody companies here, and that's a popular play. And I think it's, from my point of view, as sort of somebody who's lived in a lot of places, whenever it's one of those ones where it's, oh, yeah, that'll be a decent show. It'd take an awful lot to muck that up.
Yeah.
Like the importance of being earnest. And this is not me saying that Kentucky Shakespeare mucked it up then or now. But I completely see where Liz is coming from. One of the ones for me would be the importance of being earnest. I've seen it about 12 times. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, 2 of those times was a really, really, really bad production in the Dublin Institute of Technology, which I had to see a second time because I was adjudicating it as part of a theatre festival. And I knew the actors in that one, and that did not help. Oh man, it didn't help the second time either. But that was a play that I would have said that is impossible to screw up. And they really managed to do it. So looking at it as the outsider, because I'm used to seeing shows that I don't know anybody in, I think I would have enjoyed it, but I definitely think there is a degree to which, and this is why I asked the question the way I did. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. There's a degree to which it is what I call a lollipop in how they did it. Now, if you don't know what I mean by a lollipop, I used to present classical radio shows. And I always knew that if I'm going to have something by Grofe or by, oh God, Tulemann, I need to throw in a lollipop here and there. Oh, here's the second movement from Beethoven's 7th. Something that everyone, that one, I like that one. Okay, we're going to listen to something difficult now. Okay, I'll have a lollipop at the end, though. I'll be rewarded for having my teeth cleaned, which I could never understand that you get lollipops at the dentist. That's another matter entirely. And I think there's a degree to which it is somewhat of a reward for those, both on stage and off, who have been going a lot. For somebody who's outside, it's not going to have the same payoff. And so you end up with that interesting question of what is the greater good that we can do here? Do we pay off those who've been in the shows and those who have been, for want of a better term, season subscribers, the people who come every year, who come see all the shows, at the possible risk of some of our fresher faces not getting the joke, or not so much not getting the joke, but not getting the same enjoyment. And I think this is one of those cases where it's a case of, yeah, this is for the good of the community. That said, they've got King Lear as the one on Friday night, so I think the lollipop came ahead of it, if you know what I mean. I'm going to be interested to see this King Lear because I was out of town, but I find it interesting, particularly with A Much Ado, because
my favorite Gloucester of any Lear that I have seen.
Oh, in this one coming?
Yes.
This will be difficult for me because I've seen it about 23 times. He said, making it sound like he's just estimating a figure. King Lear is that one for me that is, okay, I've seen it enough times that I have a rough lineup that would never work together because they're all from very different shows. But I'm going to be looking at this with great interest. John Huffman, I think, is Lear, is he?
Yes.
He's an old friend of mine, so hi, John, if you're watching. But I'll be very interested to see John in the role. I think he'll be good in the role. But I've seen, Oliver Wendell Ford in it. I've seen Julian Glover in it. I've seen, what's his name? Samuel West, I think. Dominic West's-Dahl. I've seen a lot of people in this. So I'll be interested to see how it goes. And for me, the key will be if they tackle it on the skills and interest of the actors more than necessarily what the audience wants, if that makes sense. I'm always interested to see Kentucky Shakespeare when it comes to tragedies, because my feeling is they're stronger with their comedies. And I think they did a reasonably good job on What You Do. I enjoyed it. I remember enjoying it on the day when I was there. I find the videos harder to watch as a matter of course, but that's me because I'm an old snob. But yeah, how many? So we've got one each on the top line. I've probably about 10. How many have you seen, Liz? How many have you seen, Claire? Roughly, would you say, in the flesh as opposed to filmated or videographed?
How many Kentucky Shakes productions? How many Much Ado's? I think I've seen 4 others, but one of those I was in, so I saw it
From
7 or
within.
8.
Yeah.
I think 3. Not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and at least 2 video productions.
Yeah. And you've presumably both seen the Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh, yeah. Yeah, because that is a standard. It really is. I don't know why anybody would try to make another film of that in the next 30 years.
Joss Whedon did a pretty good job. It's a very different take. It's a modern.
It is. Well, he did what I think people should generally try to do with Shakespeare. That's sort of canon or well known. Is he did his own thing. In terms of I mean, like I like Henry V. I like to see different takes on Henry V. But after the Olivier one, you really have to do something different with it. And
Martin,
the
your microphone is doing that buzzing thing that it started doing in the video too. Say it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Less crackly?
Yeah.
Yes, that's better.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I mean, with Henry V, why would you film it unless you're doing something really different with it after Laurence Olivier's? Oddly enough. You've all seen the Laurence Olivier Henry V.
I've seen clips.
I like that. I think it's better than his Hamlet, personally, but that's me.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually, I saw clips in a Shakespeare on Stage and Screen class where we were comparing different moments from different Henry V films.
There's been a couple. I like
the Brano one has an interesting intro. We studied that, and I really like the intro for that.
I don't hate it, but it also feels like it's not different enough. It's not contemporary enough for my liking for film. The what you call it, the Olivier one, from the perspective of Britain at the end of World War II, it is superb because it is a transport and it is at the same time a complete exploration. I can see Liz hating every word I'm saying.
Well, part of it is that I just don't like Hamlet very much, which is my very spicy hot take. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I should be clear. Obviously, it's a masterpiece. Obviously, it's one of the best.
But you don't have to like a masterpiece, God.
Exactly. Well, for starters, Olivier, he opens his Hamlet with, "This is a story about a man who can't make up his mind." And it's like, that's what Hamlet is. Mm-hmm. He's not a man who can't make up his mind. He's a man who's got these 2 competing drives and he can't act on any of them. And so he's paralyzed. But he's stuck, but he's not a matter of, it's not dithering. That's what I think. So plus Olivier's Hamlet was super heavily influenced by Freud. The
Ernest Jones book that I literally have right here. Was talking about it earlier. Yeah.
I don't care very much for Freud.
No, he's full of it. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, but with Freud, it's also always inserted into the vagina.
In the Hamlet that
Sorry, PG folks.
in the Hamlet I was stage managing before, Plague. I remember in one rehearsal we were about to do the closet scene and someone was like, so, the whole Freudian take, and we all just kind of looked at each other and was like, yeah, let's not. Glad we brought it up, but let's not. And everyone was like, yep, solid.
Then we're agreed.
Yes. We've had students ask us about it, and we're like, you can interpret the play any way you want. This is our interpretation that does not involve Freud.
Well, you can have a mediocre interpretation. That's fine. Yeah.
One thing I actually really liked about this production, in that same Shakespeare on Stage and Screen class, we looked at the Kenneth Branagh Much Ado, and we looked at the moment in the Joss Whedon and maybe one other version, a specific moment that can be done different ways, much like you can interpret the closet scene in very different ways. And it's the scene where the prince proposes to Beatrice. It's very easy to play it off either as a complete joke, like, oh, will you have me? No. Or you can have it be serious, like, will you have me, lady? And then Beatrice is like, no, wait, what? And I really liked the way they did it in the Kentucky Shakes production. So awkward. It was wonderfully cringy.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the cringe factor for human interaction. My theory of directing leads me to feel strongly that when people aren't awkward around each other, they're generally the villains. Don John is not awkward. Don John is, I'm not a man of many words, so thank you. Don John is, we're going to do this. You right, Conrad? You right, Baraccio? Let's do this. Whereas, and again, it is like all good theories, completely easily undermined, but it sounds good at the moment.
I think Don John's comfortable with himself.
Oh, yeah.
But
let me be that I am and seek not to alter me.
Yeah, but he's not. Other people are uncomfortable around him, for one. Because, like, if you react to somebody who just tried to overthrow his brother, it's like, what do you even say? And I think Don John, it's not so much he's uncomfortable, it's just he has a seething resentment of every single part of his life, which is a sort of discomfort. But it's not like, oh, I'm an awkward little panda here. It's more just like, I am better than and hate all of you people here, and one day I'm going to fuck all your lives up.
Could that not be argued to be supreme confidence?
Yeah.
Self-confidence and otherwise. And is there anything, again, I'm fighting this point that I don't really care enough about to fight, but it makes for a good discussion. Is it not fair to say that we are all us normal people, are much more uncomfortable around somebody who is supremely confident and supremely comfortable in many ways?
I really liked John's interpretation of Don John. I thought it was very, very fun playing into the cartoon villainy. I think he spoke maybe a little faster. I prefer Shakespeare quick spoken, but at times I was like, wow, he's talking real fast. Though I will say I also prefer that much more to the opposite, which has definitely been represented in film.
I know not what you mean, madam.
Keanu Reeves in the Kenneth Branagh version talked like this wooden board.
One of the choices that this production made that I loved is, when Don John's led onto the stage, he's wearing the same uniform as everybody else. And then as he's giving his, it's not exactly a soliloquy because Conrad's there, as he's giving his, smile,
I'm angry,
etc., he's changing his clothes to go put on like the black suit for the rest of the play. So like you get the idea, he's wearing a costume when he's around everybody else. And he's literally putting on his villain clothes in private. I thought that was a brilliant decision that I really, really liked.
I really like that choice too. I also think it's very effective because a lot of times in these plays, occasionally characters will play different characters. So if there's a costume change, often it can signify, oh, I'm a different character now, especially if it's something as stark from soldier to black suit. That could very easily be another character. And I think it functioned in both ways, like a practical, this is the same character kind of way, and a storytelling kind of way. I also like that they made Conrad and Baraccio kind of like waiters or servants of the household. It felt like they were like undercover spies, and I kind of dug that.
I wanted to say, when Martin asked if we were all just a little uncomfortable around people who are completely confident in themselves, couldn't it be that Don John is just a narcissist? And we're like really uncomfortable around narcissists, especially since we've got one in our White House right now.
That's a relief. I thought you were about to say in our midst, and everyone was going to look at me.
Who could it be?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Is Don John a narcissist?
Absolutely, but I want to point out that narcissists also have the impact of getting really loyal people to throw their whole damn lives away for them. So like, and I mean, if Don John had won his rebellion, I feel like everybody would be glad handing him and being like, hey, you know, we've got to make peace because there's no other way to go forward from this. So come on and hang out at our place. So I'm sorry, my perspective is colored by the fact that I've been watching Tiger King all week, and one of the
I've
people
not watched it, but I understand what you're thinking from all of the memes and secondhand information I've received about Tiger King.
All of the people who run these tiger sanctuaries have tremendous charisma and are absolutely batshit crazy, but they keep like getting new boyfriends and girlfriends and people to join their cults. And it's like, you know, me on the couch, I'm like, oh my God, these people are nuts. What are you doing? But for some people lost or whatever in their lives, it's like, yeah, he may be crazy, but he's confident, and I need somebody who's got a direction, so I'm going to follow it.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Quite a lot.
18% of the people in Oklahoma voted for Joe Exotic for governor of Oklahoma. So,
that's the Tiger King guy?
Yes.
Wow. Was he running on a party basis?
Polyamorous and gay. So in Oklahoma, openly.
It's dangerous when you've got narcissism plus charisma. Like you got both of those things going on. Woo.
Fortunately, I don't have charisma, so we're all good. I'm going to suggest, you want to read out loud, or is that terrifying to people?
Let me go over to my...
So I had to...
I'm in a 1990s video, music video, with Claire walking around and the background moving.
This is my Shakespeare shelf. I also have more Shakespeare books. I actually have a Much Ado. I'll get that instead of one of my collected works.
Back into 1990s music video.
I have a version of Much Ado that I like to write up my versions of Shakespeare every time I read through them, and I've got years of notes layered on each other.
Oh, nice.
I had to...
That's like my Hamlets.
I had to pick up, and I didn't take it with me, so I have to read from an online version.
That's allowed. Listen, I mean, I'm delighted to hear that you're in Jersey. I know Jersey's not like a walk in the park either, but where is?
South Jersey is better.
Is it?
Is better than North Jersey.
Oh, there's nobody living in South Jersey though, is there?
South Jersey is a lot of where people have their vacation homes, and also like, you know, boardwalks and little tiny parks, like theme parks, and not very much less densely populated than North Jersey, which is where a lot of the people live who go to New York.
Yeah. So where are you at the moment? South, north, or central?
South. Very
That's good.
south.
Good. Glad to hear it. Right.
For-
Who's joining in? I've got my one. You've got online. You've got a. Oh, I think I know that edition.
For Christmas, my parents, the front fell off. I still have the other piece, but I haven't glued it back on. For Christmas one year, my parents got me this really gorgeous version with like paper cutout illustrations.
Cool. You joining us, Gary, in the reading?
Wow, very
Yes, I have the online edition at the MIT site.
Excellent.
Yep, I've got the same one.
Michelle?
Yeah, I've got one that I got offline, so who knows?
The MIT ones are actually really good, but they're very slightly different from book to book as people correct things. So I have no idea. I've got Signet Classics, so that is lowest common denominator as far as I can tell. I think it's one step below Barnes and Noble Shakespeare collection. So I am the pleb of the people. Let's see. There are 8 characters in Act 1, Scene 1, if I'm not mistaken. Where is my copy of it? I've realized we have a need as a society for a Shakespeare scene-by-scene website where you can tell how many characters are in each scene. There are 8 characters in Act 1, Scene 1. Don Pedro, Don John. Don John has a line. Claudio, Benedict, Leonato, Hero, Beatrice, and the Messenger. So I think the Messenger...
Lines, though.
Sorry?
Hero doesn't have any lines.
I thought she had one in mind. She doesn't in the film for certain. I think she's like one line or something dreadful like that. Let me check.
Oh yeah, do you know who has the most lines in this play?
Beatrice?
Nope, not by a long shot.
Oh, not bloody Claudio.
Nope.
That's a relief.
Who?
I think I looked it up and I remember it being Leonato.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I can look it up again. Maybe my memory's wrong, but I remember being surprised by that. Yeah, although Beatrice has a lot of lines and a lot of zingers, she only has two very short things that can be called monologues. Benedict talks way longer when he talks to himself. And I think Leonato has even more lines because he's throughout the play playing a kind of facilitator function in a lot of the scenes.
Cool. You're completely right. I don't see Hero in there anymore. So we've got 7 people to fill. Don John has 1 line. The Messenger is gone before I think Don John speaks, and the Messenger has a good bit. So there's 1 doubling. Who fancies being the Messenger / Don John, maybe? Okay,
I'll take that.
Oh, thank you, Gary. And I'll put you in on my list so I can try and keep track of this. Gary. Gary. We have Don Pedro, Claudio, Benedict, Leonato, and Beatrice. So, anybody not want to be Beatrice?
I'll read for Benedict. I like reading Benedict's
Cool.
lines.
We'll put you guys as, or you folks as, Liz, would you be disgusted if you played Beatrice?
Fine.
If you must.
If I must.
All right, let me put you down as that. What is your name, Liz? And this is just for me, so I can keep track of who's meant to be who. And who is that? Is Claire. And then we have Claudio, Don Pedro, and Leonato. So I don't think Claudio says much when Leonato's there, does he? I think Claudio's mostly when Leonato's gone.
Yeah, Claudio's mostly when Leonardo's not on stage anymore.
So, Michelle, do you have a choice between Prince, Don John, or being Claudio and Leonato? I don't know why I'm saying all this. You know all this better.
I don't know. I'll be Claudio and Leonardo.
Okie doke. And I'll be the Prince, and I will also be funky. I will let the rest of you remember the lines accordingly. So, Michelle, I can't use M this time because I'm also M. New York, London, Paris, Munich. Everybody's talking about Don Pedro. Okay, so Don Pedro is me, Don John is Gary, Claudio is Michelle, Benedict is Claire, Leonato is Michelle, Beatrice is Liz, and Gary is the messenger. Got that?
Righto.
My script starts with Leonato. Is that how you have it?
That is how I have it. Anyone have
That is how I
different?
have it.
You.
Oh my goodness. I have not actually read through the version I have because I received it shortly after being in the play where I was like, I can recite half these lines. I don't really want to read through it. Interesting. In my version, it opens, enter Leonato, governor of Messina, Imogen, his wife, Hero, his daughter, and Beatrice, his niece, with a messenger. I've not noticed Leonato's wife, Imogen, noted in a play
as
before.
I understand it from what I read about it, that's the only time she's ever even mentioned. And of course, she's not actually in the show at all. In the play.
Yeah. Sorry, that just struck me as something new. There are also very good notes in this version. I should actually... Yeah.
I've never heard this before. It's intriguing.
The note on Imogen, which I know is also a common spelling of Imogen. Most editors omit this character because she has no lines in the scene or in 2.1 where the stage direction calls for the entrance of Leonato, his brother, his wife, and because she is not named in the stage directions for the wedding scene. Yet Imogen, mother of normally taciturn Hero, could be an interesting silent presence and is named in both quarto and folio texts.
Both? That's intriguing. Well, screw her. She's not in it. No more than Hero. So imagine Imogen and her daughter Hero, who are probably played by the same actress like certain productions of Winter's Tale. Right. Let's get going with enter Leonato, governor of Messina, Hero, his daughter, and Beatrice, his niece, with a messenger, and maybe a wife, maybe not. Who knows? These are trying times.
Okay. I learn in this letter that Don Peter of Aragon comes this night to Messina.
He is very near by this. He was not 3 leagues off when I left him.
How many gentlemen have you lost in this action?
But few of any sort, and none of name.
A victory is twice itself when the achiever brings home full numbers. I find here that Don Peter hath bestowed much honor on a young Florentine called Claudio.
Much deserved on his part, and equally remembered by Don Pedro. He hath borne himself beyond the promise of his age, doing, in the figure of a lamb, the feats of a lion. He hath indeed bettered expectation than you must expect of me to tell you how.
He hath an uncle here in Messina, will be very much glad of it.
I have already delivered him letters, and there appears much joy in him, even so much that joy could not show itself modest enough without a badge of bitterness.
Did he break out into tears?
In great measure.
A kind overflow of kindness. There are no faces truer than those that are so washed. How much better is it to weep at joy than to joy at weeping?
I pray you, is Signor Montalto returned from the wars or no?
I know none of that name, lady. There was none such in the army of any sort.
What is he that you ask for, niece?
My cousin means Signor Benedict of Padua. One line. I knew it. one line.
Oh,
My
he's
cousin
returned.
means Signor Benedict of Padua.
Oh, he's returned, and as pleasant as ever he was.
He sets up his bills here in Messina and challenged Cupid at the flight. And my uncle's fool, reading the challenge, subscribed for Cupid and challenged him at the bird bolt. I pray, how many have he killed and eaten in these wars? But how many have he killed? For indeed, I promise to eat all of his killing.
Faith, niece, you tax Signor Benedict too much, but he'll be meat with you, I doubt it not.
He hath done good service, lady, in these wars.
You had musty victual, and he hath hope to eat it. He had very valiant trencherment, he hath an excellent stomach.
And a good soldier too, lady.
And a good soldier to a lady. But what is he to a lord?
A lord to a lord, a man to a man, stuffed with all honorable virtues.
Oh, it is so. He is no less than a stuffed man. But for the stuffing, well, we're all mortal.
You must not, sir, mistake my niece. There is a kind of merry war betwixt Signor Benedict and her. They never meet, but there's a skirmish of wit between them.
Alas, he gets nothing by that. In our last conflict, 4 of his 5 wits went halting off, and now is the whole man governed with 1. So if he hath wit enough to keep himself warm, let him bear it for the difference between himself and his horse. For it is all the wealth that he hath left, for it is known to be a reasonable creature. Oh, who is his companion now? He hath every month a new sworn brother.
Is't possible?
Very easily possible. He wears his faith but as the fashion of his hat. It ever changes with the next block.
I see, lady, the gentleman is not in your books.
No, and he were, I would burn my study. But I pray you, who is his companion? Is there no young square now that will make the voyage with him to the devil?
He is most in the company of the right noble Claudio.
Oh, Lord, he will hang on him like a disease. He is sooner caught than the pestilence, and the taker runs presently mad. God help the noble Claudio. If he has caught the Benedict, it will cost him £1,000 ere he be cured.
I will hold friends with you, lady.
Do, good friend.
You will never run mad, niece.
Not till a hot January.
Don Pedro is approached.
Enter Don Pedro, Claudio, Benedict, Balthazar, who does not speak, and John the Bastard. Good Signor Leonato, are you come to meet your trouble? The fashion of the world is to avoid cost, and here you encounter it.
Never came trouble to my house in the likeness of your grace. For trouble being gone, comfort should remain. But when you depart from me, sorrow abides and happiness takes his leave.
You embrace your charge too willingly. I think this is your daughter?
Her mother hath many times told me so.
Were you in doubt, sir, that you asked her?
Signor Benedict, no, for then were you a child.
You have it full, Benedict. We may guess by this that you are being a man. We may guess by this what you are being a man. Truly the lady fathers herself. Be happy, lady, for you are like an honorable father.
If Signor if Signor Leonato be her father, she should not have his head on her shoulders, for all Messina is like him as she is.
I wonder that you're still talking, Signor Benedict. Nobody marks you.
What, my dear Lady Disdain, are you yet living?
Is it possible Disdain should die while she hath such meat food to feed it as Signor Benedict? Courtesy itself must convert to disdain if you come in her presence.
Then is courtesy a turncoat? But it is certain I am loved of all ladies, only you excepted. And I could find it in my heart that I had not a hard heart, for truly I love none.
A dear happiness to women. They would else have been troubled with a pernicious suitor. I thank God in my cold blood I am of your humor for that. I had rather hear my dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me.
God keep your ladyship still in that mind, so some gentleman or other shall scape a predestinate scratched face.
Scratching could not make it worse and tore such a face as yours were.
Well, you are a rare parrot teacher.
A bird of my tongue is better than a beast of yours.
I would my horse had the speed of your tongue, and so get a continuer. But keep your way. In God's name, I have done.
You always end with a jade's trick. I know you of old.
That is the sum of all, Leonato. Signor Claudio and Signor Benedict, my dear friend Leonato, hath invited you all. I tell him we shall stay here at the least a month, and he heartily prays some occasion may detain us longer. I dare swear he is no hypocrite, but prays from his heart.
If you swear, my lord, you shall not be forsworn. Let me bid you welcome, my lord. Being reconciled to the prince your brother, I owe you all duty.
I thank you. I am not of many words, but I thank you.
Please, please at your grace, lead on.
Your hand, Leonato, we will go together. Exeon manent. That's interesting that he uses Latin. He uses more Latin in this play than any of the other ones. Benedict and Claudio.
Benedict, dost thou note the daughter of Signor Leonato?
I noted her not, but I looked on her.
Is she not a modest young lady?
Do you question me as an honest man should do for my simple, true judgment, or would you have me speak after my custom as being a professed tyrant to their sex?
No, I pray thee speak in sober judgment.
Why, in faith, methinks she is too low for a high praise, too brown for a fair praise, too little for a great praise. Only this commendation I can afford her, that she were other than she is, she were not unhandsome, and being no other than but she is, I do not like her.
Thou thinkest I am in sport. I pray thee tell me truly how thou likest her.
Would you buy her that you inquire after her?
Can the world buy such a jewel?
Yea, and a case to put it in. But speak you this with a sad brow? Or do you play the flouting jack to tell us Cupid is a good hair finder and a Vulcan a rare carpenter? Come, in what key shall a man take you to go in the song?
In mine eye she is the sweetest lady that ever I looked on.
I can see yet without spectacles, and I see no such matter. There is her cousin, and were she not possessed with a fury, exceeds her as much in beauty as the 1st of May doth the last of December. But I hope you have no intent to turn husband, have you?
I would scarce trust myself, though I had sworn the contrary, if Hero would be my wife.
Is't come to this? And faith, hath the world not one, but he will wear his cap with suspicion? Shall I never see a bachelor of 80 again? Go to, in faith, and thou wilt needs thrust my neck into a yoke, wear the print of it, and sigh away Sundays. Look, Don Pedro has returned to seek you.
Enter Don Pedro. What secret hath you here? What secret hath held you here, that you followed not to Leonato's?
I would your grace would constrain me to tell.
I charge thee on thy allegiance.
You hear, Count Claudio, I can be secret as a dumb man. I would have you think so, but on my allegiance, mark you this. On my allegiance, he is in love. With who? Now that is your grace's part. Mark you how short his answer is. With Hero, Leonato's short daughter.
If this were so, so were it uttered.
Like the old tale, my lord, it is not so, nor 'twas not, but so, but indeed, God forbid it should be so.
If my passion change not shortly, God forbid it should be otherwise.
Amen. If you love her, for the lady is very well worthy.
Hold on. Sorry. You speak this to fetch me in, my lord.
By my troth, I speak my thought.
And in faith, my lord, I spoke mine.
And by my 2 faiths and troths, my lord, I spoke mine.
That I love her, I feel.
That she is worthy, I know.
That I neither feel how she should be loved nor know how she should be worthy is the opinion that fire cannot melt out of me. I will die in it at the stake.
Thou wast ever an obstinate heretic in the despite of beauty.
And never could maintain his part, but in the force of his will.
That a woman conceived me, I thank her. That she brought me up, I likewise give her most humble thanks. But that I will have a retreat winded in my forehead, or hang my bugle in an invisible baldric, all women shall pardon me, because I will not do myself the wrong. I will not do them the wrong to mistrust any. I will do myself the right to trust none. And the fine is, for which the will may go the finer, I will live a bachelor.
I shall see thee, ere I die, look pale with love.
With anger, with sickness, or with hunger, my lord, but not love. Prove that ever I lose more blood with love than I will gain again with drinking. Peck out mine eyes with a ballad maker's pin, and hang me up on the door of a brothel house for the sign of blind Cupid.
Well, if ever thou dost fall from this faith, thou wilt prove a notable argument.
If I do, hang me in a bottle like a cat and shoot at me. And he that hits me, let him be clapped on the shoulder and called Adam.
Well, as time shall try, in time the savage bull doth bear the yoke.
The savage bull may, but if ever the sensible Benedict bear it, pluck off the bull's horns and set them in my forehead, and let me be vilely painted, and in such great letters as they write, "Here is good horse to hire," let them signify under my sign, "Here you may see Benedict, the varied man."
If this should ever happen, thou wouldst be horn mad.
Nay, if Cupid should have not spent all his quiver in Venice, thou wilt quake for this shortly.
I look for an earthquake too.
Well, you will temporize with the hours. In the meantime, good Signor Benedict, repair to Leonato's, commend me to him, and tell him I will not fail him at supper. For indeed, he hath made great preparation.
I have almost matter enough in me for such an embassage, and so I commit to you.
To the tuition of God, from my house, if I had it.
The 6th of July, your loving friend, Benedict.
Nay, mock not. The body of your discourse is sometimes guarded with fragments, and the guards are but slightly basted on neither. Ere you flout old ends any further, examine your conscience. And so I leave you.
My liege, your highness now may do me good.
My love is thine to teach. Teach it but how, and thou shalt see how apt it is to learn any hard lesson that may do thee good.
Hath Leonato any son, my lord?
No child but Hero, she's his only heir. Dost thou affect her, Claudio?
Oh, my lord, when you went onward on this ended action, I looked upon her with a soldier's eye, that liked, but had a rougher task in hand than to drive liking to the name of love. But now I am returned, and that war thoughts have left their places vacant. In their rooms come thronging soft and delicate desires, all prompting me how fair young Hero is, saying I liked her ere I went to wars.
Thou wilt be a lover presently. Thou wilt be like a lover presently. Entire the hero with a book of words. If thou dost love fair Hero, cherish it. And I will break with her and with her father, and thou shalt have her. Was not to this end that thou beganst to twist so fine a story?
How sweetly you do minister to love, that no loves grief by his complexion. But lest my liking might too sudden seem, I would have solved it with a longer treatise.
What need the bridge much broader than the flood? The fairest grant is the necessity. Look, what will serve is fit. 'Tis once thou lovest, and I will fit thee with the remedy. I know we shall have revelling tonight. I will assume thy part in some disguise and tell fair Hero I am Claudio, and take her in her bosom. I'll unclasp my heart. and take her hearing prisoner with the force and strong encounter of my amorous tale. Then after to her father I will break, and the conclusion is she shall be thine. In practice, let us put it presently. Exeunt. End of the scene. Well done, folks. Actually reading Shakespeare for a change as opposed to yammering on about it. Anything strike you as coming from that? I always find reading these things out loud with other people is a presenter of unexpected information.
Something I already kind of knew that struck me again is so much of this play is written in prose.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, the second that Claudio gets really enamored, he starts talking in verse, and when I was following along, I noted where it changed to verse and was like, wow, that is a pretty stark contrast. So much so that they acknowledge it in the following line.
Mm.
You will tire the hearer with a book of words, because all of a sudden it switches from, like, we're just talking to, I'm going to recite love poetry.
Yeah, it is fairly on the nose, all right.
One thing that I noticed this time around is Benedict doesn't say very much before Beatrice jumps in and says, "Why are you still talking? Nobody's listening to you."
Mm.
So it's like, I mean, Benedict will never shut up if you let him keep talking, but Beatrice is, I don't know, she's so excited to talk to him that she doesn't even let him get half a word out before she starts making fun of him.
And I've often seen that line kind of further explained through blocking. Like, everyone else leaves all of a sudden, so he's talking and no one all of a sudden is standing around him.
Mm.
And I think you almost need something like that in the blocking for that line to make sense, because it is so sudden.
I agree, but also, you know, she didn't wait until he had spoken for another, you know, like a couple of other people in here did. She just, like, got on it right away. It's like, why are you still talking? Because she can't resist talking.
Yeah, I'm inclined when I look at a line like that, it's like, because they are known of old to have been romantically inclined, I don't want to make assumptions before we read deeper. It is very much, you know, it's like, oh my God, you're still talking. It's kind of almost Aubrey Plaza in Parks and Recs, or virtually any part she plays, where she's, you know, that kind of, oh my God, will you ever shut up? It's like, I just said hello.
Now I really want to see Aubrey Plaza play Beatrice, but just like
I think
as
she
that
has,
character.
actually. I think I may have read that she did sometime on.
But
before.
like as that character.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Then
I really, really, really want to see Michael Scott, well, that actor, play Lear when he's slightly older.
Steve Carell.
Yes, because all Michael Scott wanted was to be loved. And he was blinded by how much he wanted to be loved. And that's Lear. I would love to see a comedic take on Lear with that. Because that's the heart of both characters. They just want to be loved. Even to the point of not really being very perceptive about anything outside of that desire.
It's an interesting angle on it. I won't bang on about it because I'm boring about Lear.
Next week.
But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting, certainly, to see different characterizations crop up. But certainly when she comes in so quickly, it's like, you've said two lines. I don't think there's any need for anybody to go away. It's like, it's like, whoa, that is full on. And especially seeing as she was banging on about him and about him and about him earlier, it's kind of, she sells it herself. Really, it feels like pointing that out. It's like, oh, it's obviously we're gonna hook these two up. I mean,
it's almost the lady doth protest too much.
Well, I mean, to use a more modern term, it's like, oh God, will the two of you just bang and get it over and done with? Jesus, guys, get a room and put us out of our misery. Which is interesting because I would argue that at the end of the play, this is the most dynamic and solid-looking relationship. Especially seeing as Imogen has disappeared by then, apparently. So, but yeah, I mean, he says, "What can I do to ease you?" I think is it something like Act 4, Scene 1 or something. I can't remember which. And her immediate response is, "Yeah, kill Claudio." He goes, "Really?" And she says, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay." And at this stage, he only thinks he loves her. He isn't even, he's had the game played on him and he's thinking that, but there's been no confirmation on her side.
No, the few lines before that, she says, "I love you so much, there's nothing left in my heart left to give. With so much of my heart, there's nothing left to give."
Yeah,
Thank you.
they already had the love confession. That's one of my favorite scenes in Shakespeare, just because from a playwright standpoint, it has everything that you want in a short play. There's very clear goals, very clear stakes. It's very nice when you can see two people in a room that really, really want something. Mm-hmm. And it's even more interesting with Beatrice's part because they both really, really want each other, but even more than she wants him, she wants retribution. I just love that chapel scene. Ugh.
But either way, now that's, thank you for the correction, because I thrive on memory, which is not as good as it once was. But it very much is a case. But yeah, whether seeing as she's vowed her love, bang, like it's like no question. Okay, kill my friend if I have to. Cool.
The thing that I find so interesting about that scene is, they've confessed that they love each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then Benedict says, "Come bid me do anything for thee." And her response is, "Kill Claudio." And his first response is, not for the
wide world.
But then Beatrice just goes on and on about, she's absolutely 1,000% certain that that Hero's been belied. That all of the men around her are being cowards for not calling out the horrible thing that he just did and just standing by, and that she is desperately unhappy that there is no man in the world that loves her so much that they're willing to do the right thing by her. And Benedict's response is, do you think you in your soul that Hero is belied? And then when she says yes, he says, "Enough, I'm engaged." He listens to a woman and changes his opinion based on what she said, which is less common than it should be in Shakespeare's canon.
Less common than it should be in the modern canon.
Less common than it should be in reality.
That's another reason why I like it. And also from a playwriting standpoint, you have a substantial change throughout the scene, and it's a very short scene.
Yeah.
And oh my God, also just Beatrice's speech in that, the "Oh, that I were a man." Oh, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. It's like, I want a t-shirt with that line. No, so few people would get it and people would be scared of me, but I just love that line so much.
What year was Much Ado in terms of Shakespeare producing these plays?
Slightly later, I believe.
I'm wondering, was Beatrice played by the same man who played Lady Macbeth? Because you're talking about, "Oh, that I were a man," being performed by the same person who a couple of years earlier or later performed "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts."
According to Wikipedia, 1598 or 99 was when it was written.
Much Ado, yeah. And the other one was, 1605 for Macbeth, I'd guess.
Oh, I don't have that one pulled up.
Yeah.
Much Ado About Nothing is 1598 to 1599. Macbeth is 1606. So
1606, okay.
7 years later.
Now, I'm not expert enough in the Shakespearean matter to know, but how long did the average man last as a woman?
Not very long, 2 to 3 years typically, I believe, because they were young
Younger.
boys. I think normally around the age of 12 to 14 when they were at full height, but before their voices dropped, and their voices tended to drop slightly later than they do now, probably due to like malnourishment.
Malnutrition, yeah.
I was
One
wondering. I was wondering when I was watching this, they make tons of jokes about how short Hero is. And I remember in Midsummer, there's also tons of jokes about how tall. I don't remember if it was Hermia was the tall one or if it was.
one was really tall,
Yeah,
one was really short, and
yeah.
that was
Hermes,
only 2 years earlier. That
Lena's
was
the tall
the
one.
same actors.
Yeah. Though she be little, she but be but fierce, I think.
Yeah.
What was that? 96, was it? Midsummer's?
95.
95, okay.
And What to Do is 98 to 99, so that's
Possibility.
probably more likely to be the same people. One
So it leads
in,
to a question of, were there men in the later plays who are repeatedly referred to as being very short? Or is there like a mad growth spurt?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but the chronology reminded me of something. I actually once wrote a paper on sisters in Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 plays with sisters in them: Taming of the Shrew, Comedy of Errors, and Lear. And you notice that there's a pattern in those plays of like really terrible older sisters and really submissive, sweet, kind younger sisters. And the older sisters, especially in Lear, are described as being very artful. They know how to lie, they know how to spin things. But a lot of scholars, including me in that paper, really read Much Ado almost as a revisiting of Taming of the Shrew and those sister relationships, because even though Hero and Beatrice are cousins rather than sisters, they have a very sisterly relationship. Other characters describe them as being like sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting flip from those other plays, because you have the very young, sweet, submissive character, but she gets a pretty bad lot for being that short, submissive, sweet kind of person. But you have Beatrice, who is older, who is also described as being artful, but not using her wit to deceive people, but rather to kind of brighten them. Unless
Mm-hmm.
it's Benedict, she can kick his ass a little bit verbally. But I do, in the chronology, Taming of the Shrew was very, very early, and I really do enjoy the reading of Hero and Beatrice almost being kind of a rewriting or revisiting of Catherine and her younger sister, who also kind of ended in a bad relationship, and as kind of questioning the, does being young, sweet, and submissive always get you the best end?
Mm. Well, taken as sort of a body, the sweet and submissive don't necessarily tend to work out well in the long run. Submission in Lear, obviously, from the two older sisters at the beginning, earns them what they want, but they don't keep it. And but the gentleness then of Cordelia similarly kind of loses out.
Out of the two, it's less clear whether the younger sister really doesn't really get anything by it, or whether the older sister loses much by it in Comedy of Errors, although they have a pretty similar relationship to. It has echoes of Catherine and Bianca and echoes of Hero and Beatrice, but definitely in the other 2 plays, Cordelia does not end very happy.
No.
Definitely not. And Bianca does not end very happy. She ends up with a terrible marriage.
Mm.
Guys, I'm going to say goodnight. It's been fun.
It has. Thank you so much, Michelle. See you next week, if not before. Hopefully, I'll be talking to you about Macbeth and the likes over the weekend. I just need 10 minutes and a quiet child. Good night. And then there were 4. Specifically in the context of this, in the context of Much Ado, do we feel, I mean, I presume do we feel that hero ultimately succeeds or wins what you could call the curate's egg?
I think she doesn't end terribly. I think she gets what she wants in the end, whether or not that's the most advisable thing to want. But I think at the end, we don't think of this play as Hero and Claudio's play, even though in some ways they're the much more traditional love story from this time. They're much more the sort of young love, Romeo and Juliet-esque thing. We think of this play and we think of Benedict and Beatrice.
Well, this is a play with, I mean, every production that makes it has to resolve a couple of head scratchers. The biggest one being, why does Don Pedro pretend to be Claudio to woo Hero at the start of the play? And
Oh, this production did not with the casting.
I would say that
That was funny for me because it's like, wow, there's like a foot of difference. This is a little bit of a stretch. I mean, I think both individual parts were really well cast, but with that scene, it was kind of ridiculous.
Another decision that I really liked, because, you know, Claudio was played by such a short actor, when, you know, Don John goes, yeah, you're Benedict, right? He's like, yes. And then he steps up on the bench going, yes, I am he. That was very funny. But the other head scratcher that you got to resolve is, why in God's name would Hero ever want to be with a man that did something like that to her? You know, in Shakespeare's time, it's easy. You know, women, they just fall in love with men. It's what they do. And, you know, Hero would be a stained woman if she goes with anybody else. But in that case, like, she wouldn't be very happy. So it's like, how do you resolve the horrible thing that Claudio did with the supposed happy ending of this play? And one way a lot of productions do that, which this one decided not to do, was the first thing Hero does is she slaps him across the face before she kisses him. And
I like that.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's the only way I can think of in doing it that makes this make any sense. Because you've gotta let her have her moment of, you have wronged me, man.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
So for this production, they didn't do that, and it's, I don't know. It didn't work as well for me, personally.
Particularly in a 21st century context where things are far from sorted in that regard. And I know far too many women who go back to their abusers still. And one would be far too many, and I hate to say that, I think it's more than one. But I do think Shakespeare's kind of aware of that to a degree because of that last line. It's a case of, you need to tell the whole audience, it's that moment of, okay, there are plot holes, but don't worry about it. It's grand. Because, I mean, that line, think not on him till tomorrow, I'll devise thee brave punishments from strike up pipers. It's almost like Shakespeare saying, yeah, that guy is a dick. So's that guy, but we're not going to say it out loud because then you'll think about it. But don't worry, the next show, I'm going to wipe him out. That's kind of what I like to think it is.
Another strong acting choice that can make it slightly more believable that I think this production did, and almost every production has that I've seen has done, is that when they mention when they're talking about the soldiers and they mention Claudio, the very first mention of his name, like, she and Beatrice are like, oh, Claudio, or Beatrice is like, oh, the guy you like, so you get the sense that it's more of a, like, this crush has been going on since before a war started.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's lines in it to support that as well.
Yeah.
At least on Claudio's side, because they don't give Hero any bloody lines.
I think those acting choices can also help to make it slightly more believable, because if you think that, oh my god, she's loved him for literally like months or years, then you could see that kind of crush being more resolved than, oh, this guy won my heart like a week ago.
Well, I'd certainly hold with you need to give Hero something, unless it's particularly for a modern audience. Otherwise, you leave going, dude, I hope that divorce is quick.
I'm really sad. The production that I was in, it was set in the 60s. I did a lot of suggestions, and most of them were taken. All three of the villains were gender bent and were made hippies who really hated Vietnam War soldiers. Which made it really fun and easy to act like I hate these guys, and I want to do. Also, I had this whole backstory where like I got kicked out of college for being part of a student protest, and they were like taking me back home, and I was like, I hate everything. I'm going to have to marry someone to survive because I can't be in college. Very fun way to play it. But one suggestion I made, given the fact that our Borachio was Borachia, and this was set in the 60s where, oh my god, someone has sex, is not as terrifying as it would have been in the 1600s in a lot of circles. My suggestion was they change one word. What woman was it talked with you out your window yesternight? So then the suspicion would not be that Hero was just not a virgin, but that she was a lesbian. And I'm like, it was so close. We had the Borachio being Borachia. We had queerness going on with Borachia and Margaret, but you didn't take it the step that you could have.
That's
Unfortunately.
Love that reading.
I really wish they would have. There were a lot of things I loved about the production, and I made several suggestions that I'm really happy that they listened to and went with. But that one, the director listened to it, but didn't take it as far as I would have liked to see it. I would like to do another production very similar to that really plays that up.
Well, I will counter one thing. Sexual mores in the 16th century were a lot more open-minded than we like to think they are, because they've been the Victorians undid everything. There was a kind of a play that was popular at the time called The Jig, which was generally bawdy and sexy, and bed hopping was not sort of an unusual thing in it.
And we also do have 12th Night, which is so gay.
But regardless, I mean, obviously, we tend to put our expectations of what the past and its views of sexuality and gender and all these different things was, and it was a lot less straightforward from what I can tell. You know, again, it depends on where you're looking at as well.
Within the world of this play, if someone isn't a virgin, it's like, die, hero, please, just die. So that's kind of extreme.
Somebody wealthy wasn't a virgin. I mean, Margaret, again, we speak of. Margaret, no big deal. She's gone, she's getting hers. Hey, good for you, lady. And the immediate thing is like, no, it was Margaret. It was Margaret. And Margaret was not in on it. And he's the woman I had extramarital sex with, she is a saint. Which is like, I can get behind that. But also, we have this habit of thinking, 16th century, we're mistaking it for the Victorian ages, because the Victorians said, everything's been like this forever. It's like, you look at the sexual politics of some 18th century plays, and you see a very different world. 18th century plays kind of got obliterated by Victorian moral values. So yeah, be aware always that it's okay. In some cases, particularly where there's financial value wrapped up in marriage more than anything else. It is woman as possession, and that's where the right of breaking the hymen or some other ridiculousness comes to play. But yeah, always be wary. It's an
Oh
easy
yeah.
trap to fall into.
In my History of the English Language podcast, we got to was it Edward the First and his friend?
Edward II.
Edward II and his special friend. That
Yeah.
he was very close to and participated a lot in his marriage ceremony, and all of the other nobles in England hated so much they beheaded him.
Piers Gaveston. He's
Yeah,
the
that one.
if you look at Edward II, which is an interesting play, by Marlowe, who was an interesting character. The man who went around and said, all men who love not boys are fools, and that Christ and John the Baptist were jugglers, which was a common euphemism for romantically involved men. Yeah, it's played. I mean, the execution they planned for Edward II in real life was was death by insertion of red hot poker, and we're not talking into the ears. So there's clearly a lot of, let's say, homophobia in the era, but there's also a lot more
Wink, wink, nod,
homosexuality
nod.
than we see now. Again, my impression is always that these things as we see them in the last two to 300 years were not necessarily as they were seen back then. You know, you go Greek and it's a different game again. Don't want to be a woman back then. Terrible how women are treated.
My favorite dialogue is the symposium where Alcibiades just comes in and drunkenly confesses his gay love for Socrates. Because that's the thing that happens in this text that we never read in school, although my teacher did recommend it.
Yeah, symposium is often glossed over for that. And other reasons.
Like the fact that it's a riot.
Well, I mean, we're getting a little bit away from Shakespeare, but
yes, we are.
I think it's important always to remember that the mores of the time may not be as different from now as we like to think they are. My attitude as a director is always, you do with the play what makes sense for the story you're looking to tell. Now, I'm a very, very I believe that the truth of the story isn't necessarily how we would understand the words today in any given play. And the audience, your responsibility too, is the audience of the year that you're doing the play in. In this case, probably at this stage, 2021, maybe. Rather than the audience as would have understood it in 1595. And so I would always say, as a director, your job is to get the best out of this play for a modern audience, to help tell the story, to help the actors to find the truths they need to find to tell this story. But we should always remember that when we're doing the research before it, expecting our views to be like theirs or expecting our views of when there was is very foolish. It's a danger we run into all the time. You know, sorry, that's another rant crossed off the list. I think I've got 4 more left.
Have you ever read the essay Shakespeare in the Bush?
No.
John, there's someone at the door.
If you get the chance,
1 second. Someone just knocked at the door, and it's like 11:30 at night, so I'm having John answer the door.
Hopefully you've not been watching horror. Shakespeare in the Bush? This is the Bush Theatre, yeah?
So what happened was this anthropologist, she was talking with a British friend about Hamlet, and the British friend's like, yeah, well, it's not really your culture, so I don't expect you to understand the values of Hamlet as much. And she was taken aback. She's American. It's like, what are you talking about? Shakespeare's universal. Yeah. And at the time, she was a Peace Corps volunteer, and she is stuck in a hut in Africa during the rainy season with the tribe she's with. And she's like, you know what? We're going to test and see if Shakespeare is actually universal. So she tells them all the story of Hamlet.
Mhm.
And the way they react is so, the stuff they get out of the play is so just utterly different from what anybody else would take from this play.
Excellent.
And, you know, she comes out of it, it's like, yeah, I guess Shakespeare really isn't as universal as we thought. Because, you know, the conclusion that her audience got out of it is, oh yeah, Claudius, of course you marry your husband's, of course you marry your dead husband's wife. That's what you're supposed to do because you take care of their family. What is Hamlet getting on about? And like, you know, just not understanding anything about what anybody is doing. And in the end, they're like, yeah, that's not a really good story. Make sure if you hear other stories, you take them to us so that we can tell you what you should get from them. And it's such an entertaining essay.
Yeah, I've just found it, and it's there to read later. I'm going to say something somewhat controversial.
What's
It
that?
wasn't uncommon then. Indeed, up to the 30s, maybe the 50s in Ireland, in the East Coast, if the husband dies, the brother moves in and looks after the children and looks after the family and looks after the wife in any of the necessaries. Because you don't want the land leaving the family. You don't want the family name to be tarnished. So when I read Hamlet, I think firstly, he's led on by a ghost. And in Shakespeare's time, that meant immediately, oh, well, the ghost is clearly from the devil, so he shouldn't be listening to this guy. Wait, he's listening to this guy? And then he's playing at being the smart university guy, being really clever. So even though I went to university, there's a part of me going, what a dick. I'm interested because I think in a different way, I'm very keen to read this because I think Shakespeare is universal, but the message people get is different from country to country and from time period to time period. So I'm really pleased that they went, no, that's a terrible story. Yeah, of course you're going to marry. He's an idiot. I love that. That for me is universality. It's like,
yeah.
I don't understand. And what's this marriage thing would be more of an issue for me.
Anyway, it's a great essay, and it, you know, and you're right, because the things that, I mean, I remember one time I was back in graduate school, I took a Shakespeare class, and we talked about, you know, in The Tempest, the history of the 21st century can be told as the history of Prospero turning into more and more of a dick as productions went on, you know? Because in Shakespeare's time, Prospero was a freaking hero of the story. And then now, I don't think anybody really likes Prospero, or at their most charitable, they're like, yes, he's overbearing, but well-intentioned. Like, that's the most charitable reading you can do these days.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and Caliban goes from being an anagram of cannibal, you know, to... Man, I remember that we charted it. Like, he was the weird savage other in the New Lands world. And then a lot later, Darwin becomes popular. So now he's this missing evolutionary link between humans and apes. And then Freud becomes popular. So he becomes like the id and the psyche of the mind that's unfiltered.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all of these countries start declaring their independence from England. Becomes this sort of revolutionary figure. And, you know, he's been that way for a while, and he's like this symbol of anti-colonial sentiment. And now there's been another change sort of where he's like, it's not quite as like overtly rebellious, and it's more what he wants as a person rather than as a symbol. And who knows what's going to happen next, but like, you know, none of this is anything close to what Shakespeare intended, of course.
Which is good.
Which is a good thing. And I think one of the reasons I love Shakespeare so much is that he somehow magically managed to write these plays that say completely different things to completely different people for centuries. And I can't think of anybody else who's managed to do it as well as he has.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to picture. I mean, Marlowe's are very direct in their morality or lack thereof, and he'd be the only one of that era. The Greeks tend to be very direct as well, but the Shakespeare at his best, and let's not talk of two noble kinsmen. Shakespeare at his best is, I think, not really thinking about having a message. He's just trying to get shit down on paper fast enough. Because it's remarkable. Macbeth has taken turns. Hamlet has taken turns. From what, even in what, 30 years, we've gone from Keanu Reeves playing him kind of gay to a point where, in the United States at least, people are starting once again to think, oh, we could have a woman play him and explore that side, which is sort of very loosely on in a black and white version, at least exploring the sexual side. We've seen Mel Gibson action Macbeth, then followed by Kenneth Branagh, the noble Aryan, practically. And then by the end of that same decade, we ended up with Ethan Hawke as douchebag Hamlet. And have you seen it? I like that film, but he is douchebag Hamlet.
I've never seen that film. I just have a personal gripe with Ethan Hawke.
So he's perfect for douchebag Hamlet.
Did you ever see his Acting Shakespeare episode?
Oh no, does he do an Acting Shakespeare episode?
Yes, he did.
I'd watched the Keanu Reeves one, but...
No, he did one for Macbeth. And... Okay, so if you ever come to New York City and you happen to have $200 that you're not spending on anything else, I highly, 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 highly recommend you check out Sleep No More, which is it's unbelievably immersive theater experience based around Macbeth, and it's wonderful. It's like nothing I've ever done. Totally worth it. I went once. And anyway, Ethan Hawke touches on Sleep No More, and in one of the rooms, you have Macbeth and Lady Macbeth performing a sort of ballet, and it's around the pub after he's just come back from killing Duncan, and he's washing the blood off, and he's not clothed. But like, that's so not the focus of what you're looking at when you're in that room. Like, it's the two of them. Sorry?
Yeah, I was going, I agree.
Yeah.
From what I've heard,
Ethan Hawke is interviewing these two actors, and literally all he can say is, oh my God, you were naked. I can't believe you're naked. And the actors are trying to be like, well, yeah, but we were also like talking about, we were trying to say with our bodies that sort of push and pull that Lady Macbeth has. Like, yeah, and without clothes too. That's incredible. And later on in Ethan Hawke's episode, he was talking with a professor about Macbeth, and he says, it's funny, like, the first time you read this line, it says one thing, and then you just keep reading it, and it says something else completely. And I'm like, Ethan, how have you been in this line of work this long?
Oh my God.
It's painful how badly he understands Macbeth. Or acting.
That's, well, I mean, I'm not going to say that's a film thing, because it's not. I mean, that's kind of sounds like must-watch television now.
If you're looking to have like a full body cringe that just continues through the whole episode, I recommend it. Which is weird, because the other Acting Shakespeare episodes I saw, they were pretty great. But
that does sound pretty spectacular, though. I mean, that's... That's a whole level I had not expected or imagined.
They do
Let's
have a
see.
short of the Sleep No More ballet in it, and it's worth it for that because that's really beautiful
Yeah.
and really intense and great. So, you know, just try to tune out Ethan Hawke being, wow, you're naked.
That is shockingly bad. Well, I'm trying to think. I don't remember him ever taking. I mean, I love Gattaca. I think that's a sensational film. But I can't imagine. I don't remember him taking risks with anything really that I've seen him in. He's been fairly solidly himself, looking
Yeah.
like cut price. What's his name? The guy who's in the Superman Returns film, and he's also in Sonic. What's his name?
Oh, James Marsden.
That's it. That's it. I'm looking. I've found it on digital theater. I don't know if I have to subscribe. Ooh, maybe I can get away with it. But he looks like a cut price James Marsden in that, on the clip there. But yeah, that sounds horrific. I can't wait to watch.
It wasn't a bad series, and Trevor Nunn's take on what was it? I think he did The Tempest. That was a pretty neat episode, but God, I was so looking forward to that series when it was coming out on PBS, and that was the first one. And I was getting all my friends together, come on, we're gonna watch it. And then we watch it, and we're all just like, oh my God, Ethan Hawke, what are you doing?
I worry and wonder that was probably the first one because it was the biggest name in terms of the average Joe on the street.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, they had David Tennant do Macbeth, but not Macbeth, Hamlet.
Hamlet, yeah.
But if you ever get the chance to see his Hamlet, it's very good, and I liked it a lot.
I've heard very good things about it. Did you see his Much Ado, by the way?
I did. I loved it. I loved his Much Ado.
I liked the design. I didn't get the chance to see the full of the thing. I just saw like a 5-minute clip. And I like Catherine Tate when she's playing somewhat
Catherine
seriously.
Tate might be my favorite Beatrice, except, oh man, actually, Danielle Brooks's Beatrice was also freaking fantastic. The two of them, they were both just wonderful Beatrices.
I think a big thing with particularly the part of Beatrice is she needs to be well in the show that she's in needs to be well in tune with who she is. And from the 5 minutes of what I saw of the Catherine Tate one, it really worked very well. Similarly so with the Emma Thompson. I'd be very keen to have a look at the Danielle Brooks one, I should say. That's presumably going to be out on PBS in the near future.
Yeah, if you go to PBS's website, they'll say what they're airing again.
Right.
But I'm waiting till it comes out on DVD so I can buy it and own it like a dragon on a horde. Like, just yes, it's mine now.
You look up PBS Much Ado About Nothing. It's good to see that. I mean, I find a lot of the time we have so many issues about actually going the whole hog. And I've seen far too many productions where you do get you get black characters who are played by non-white folks, but they don't actually go the whole hog and give them a main role or a leading role. And I mean, at this stage, I've seen 15, it's 20 and 25 years ago, I was seeing Black Kings of England in Shakespeare in England. I'd love to see more companies taking the risk and doing, because it shouldn't be a risk, doing fully queer productions of shows, fully non-white productions of shows, or all woman productions of shows. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Phila de Law, I think, directed, I think it was Julius Caesar, Macbeth, and one other. I know Harriet Walter was in a few of them. All female productions of 3 of the great Shakespeare tragedies. And, they were huge hits, but we still encounter quite a lot of pushback here at the prospect of a lead in a play being played by a woman, either as a man or as a woman. I don't know if Kentucky Shakespeare is ready yet for a female Macbeth or a female Hamlet, but you know, it's been done over and over again. At least the first filmed Hamlet, the first full-length filmed Hamlet was a woman, Asta Nielsen, as was the first filmed Hamlet, I think, which was Sarah Bernhardt, I think. I think it was like a 2-minute scene or something like that in silence. But yeah, there's like a long tradition going back to at least the 18th century of female leads in Shakespeare, but it feels so far off here sometimes. In the United States, I mean, generally, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is New York much better as regards gender blindness?
I mean, I think there's, well, New York's got its own complicated history. As far as race goes, you get there's like a 2 steps forward, 2 steps back pull all the time. You get like lots of great race line casts of shows, but then you also get Miss Saigon coming out with half the actors in yellowface, and
No.
you know, my high school did that for King and I. Yeah.
Wait, are you in your 40s or 50s? Because you don't look it. And I'm not saying it was right then, but it was less known to be really wrong.
Oh, if you think that's bad. So, okay, you need to understand that blindingly lily white suburban high schools everywhere have serious problems in that Broadway likes to talk about race a lot. And I have a friend who, I'm still in awe about this. His high school, again, like 99% white, decided they were going to put on Hairspray, which comes with a problem, of course. And they're like, well, we can't do blackface because we'll get torn apart for it. So here's what we're going to do. Hairspray, it's no longer about white people and black people. No, it's about rich people and poor people. And they did it.
And followed the lines appropriately.
I don't know, because I mean, this is just my friend who told me about this, and I just...
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I approve of trying to think outside the box, and I do notice there is a degree of assumption that if you are not white, you are poor. And there's a degree of making it so, but that's not where to have that conversation.
You're right. It's not.
How did your friend
You know,
idea?
you need to understand, in blindingly white suburbia, there's just a lot of, oh, we'll just not talk about it and let it happen. I mean, I know for my production of The King and I, nobody nobody brought it up. Although that production had a lot of shit going on in it that we got, for some reason, they didn't like any of the boys that tried out for the part of the king, so they got this like 40-something-year-old drama teacher from the next school over to come in and play the part, and he was the biggest diva on earth. Like, we're in Hell Week, and he throws a fit because people are missing their cues and start shouting, "My name is going to be on this production, and you're not going to, like..."
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah. Oh, God. That was a show.
Yeah, I can believe it. Normally, the drama teacher who has to take on the role themselves is normally in the school, but that is impressive. Wow.
Oh,
That's
man.
special.
Anyway, but as far as gender goes, I mean, I know there's a production of Hamlet going on right now
With
that's
the Irish woman in it.
Hamlet. And
Ruth
I think
Negga.
a few years ago, there was a Shakespeare in the Park production that was all women. But at the same time, you know, it's...
Is it tokenistic?
Yeah, it's tokenistic, and it's something where it's like, check out this hot new experiment, and then we'll never do it again. You know?
Yeah. So I'm intrigued by the Ruth Negga one because I've heard some mixed reviews of it. But it certainly wasn't sold in Ireland as, look, a woman playing Hamlet. It's like, look, our most famous actress at the moment who's still doing stage is playing Hamlet. I think more than, because I know it's going over to, where is it? Which stage in London? It's going over to some London stage. I can't remember which one at all. And it's meant to be going over in September. Who knows? And yeah, it's all about Ruth Negga, but it isn't like a woman playing Hamlet, which is a relief. And nor is it somebody who's not white playing Hamlet, for that matter, either, because really and truly. But yeah, I hate it when you see, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but the reality is, in the United States, I hate the fact that when it's a woman playing Hamlet, that is the only thing that is spoken of. Or when it's an all-black Much Ado, or whatever. And personally, I'd love to see the day happen when we have an all-black Death of a Salesman and an all-white, what's the other one? Raisin in the Sun, playing in repertory together. Say, hey, here's your American Dream. Let's have a look at this in a really deep and scary way that will terrify everybody from all sides. But then I'm a foreigner, so I've got a very different attitude. Because I know if A Raisin in the Sun was to be done in Ireland 30 years ago, that would have been an all-white affair. Now, we have, thanks to Nigerians coming to our country, to use the most racist-y sounding way of putting it, thanks to immigration, thank God we have a bit of colour on our skin occasionally. A friend of mine set up the first Nigerian theatre company there back in 98. And since then, it's just been a blossoming of acting, not just in terms of, hey, we've got somebody who can play Othello. It's a case of, hey, we're learning new styles that are coming in from other countries because we have an international theatre world now, whereas we had up until I'd say 98, this is the style of acting we do in Ireland. Oh, you went over and you learned from that French fella, that's nice. You don't really fit in our play. And that was the way very often. You know, people who went to L'École de Coq would come back and they'd have to adapt to being in a very much more Irish style. And it was interesting because they never fit. Like Alwyn Fury is an amazing actress that you probably have never heard of over here. She's in a few Irish films, but she was just, every time she was on stage, she had this completely different presence from her training. I can't remember if she was Lecoq or where. Same with Pat Kinnavan and Michael Murphy. And when they were in a play, if they were well cast in a play, they would just transcend everything. Alwyn Fury's best part, in my opinion, was By the Bog of the Cats. I know it got to New York at one point. I think that was 10 years ago at most recent. But it's based on Medea. And it's set in Ireland, in the middle of Ireland, in rural nowhere. And it's exploring, among other things, you know, our relationship with our own native minority, which would be the Irish traveling community. And it's sensitively handled, but both Kinnavan and Fury are in that. And their characters are transcendent. And it's really interesting to see something like that happen. And again, I'd like to believe that since I've left, as we have more actors and actresses, and well, let's just call it actors because that covers more. I hate it, but you know, We have enhanced our acting techniques and our abilities. We've become a little bit more inclusive. By no means are we ready or sorted or done. Dear God, we're far from that. But to see how things have changed to the point where, oh, we've got a non-white, or not entirely white at least, Hamlet, who also happens to be a woman, and people are talking about it exclusively. In fact, she's in films, you know. She's back from America to be in a play. It's like the problems. Our prime minister at the moment, or Taoiseach as we call him, is Leo Varadkar. I don't think he's Christian. He's certainly not Catholic. He's the son of an immigrant from India, and he may even be vegetarian. And and he's gay, and he's openly partnered with some other guy. And when he goes over to visit the US for St. Patrick's Day, the excitement is, Leo's going to have to shake Mike Pence's hand. Dear God, I hope he gives him a bone crusher. And if he's not liked, it's because of economic policies of the party he's in, not because of any of the other things. I mean, I'm sure there are idiots around saying, you can imagine what they're saying.
Yeah.
But he's our leader, and the reasons that most people have any problem with him, nothing to do with any of those old things. 40 years ago, dear God, you'd have never gotten elected. But, you know, I'd like for us to catch up with Ireland over here, which is a bizarre thing to say, having grown up in Ireland in the 70s. Anyway, I see it's getting on for time. We're on to 10 to midnight. I have now an essay to read and a show to cringe through. I'm looking forward to that cringe. I can't wait to see it because he's so earnest about so many things that don't seem to be worthy of the earnestness. Thanks a million for joining us, both of you. Hopefully we'll have you next week. I've not... Seeing as it's the three of us, what do we want to talk about next week? Kentucky Shakespeare are doing King Lear, but I don't feel we need to be tied to it. We could go esoteric. We can go whatever. Gary, have you any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I certainly plan to watch Lear, and certainly expect that we'll discuss that to some degree. But beyond that, no, I'm wide open. I find it fascinating and educational to sit here and just listen to true Shakespeare geeks, if you will, go on about things about Shakespeare that I would never probably even consider, you know, from just watching them at Central Park or whatever. So, you know, this has been a fascinating experience for me, and I'm enjoying it.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you enjoyed yourself, Liz, as well. I hope the tongue isn't too scored.
It was great.
How about we keep it sort of broad and make a point of the King Lear being on, but talk generally about tragedy with reference to Lear and Hamlet, Macbeth, whatever else is coming up, especially seeing as I'm casting you poor saps in Macbeth as well.
Yes, and I'll be curious to see who was at the door that caused Claire to leave so abruptly.
I'm interested in that. Claire never came back.
Yeah.
I think the call was coming from within the house.
Yeah, so.
I love that line. The call is inside the house. Yeah, no, I'll be interested to see. I should probably send her a message to say, Claire, are you still alive? Or at least are you pretending to be Claire and alive? But yeah. Well, listen, it has been a joy and a pleasure. I don't know about you, but I live for these opportunities to talk to humans.
Yes,
I love the humans I live with.
Yeah.
I'm nicer to them when I get to talk to other humans too.
It was so cute earlier this evening when Redmond kept inadvertently interrupting you. He was so desperate to come in and...
No inadvertence. That guy is an attention whore.
And I loved him playing with the light switch like he was trying to do Morse code or something.
Thank God I haven't taught him that yet, because there would be Morse code. And with his little flash lamp, coming in through the door, pointing through. Liz, you may or may not want to join a group that is called My Friends Are Awesome, Let's Learn From Them, or something like that. It's sort of a mix and gathering of all different people doing different Facebook stuff. And I've been doing a couple of Facebook Lives. I'm going to be posting those Facebook Lives up eventually on my own Facebook thingy. Where on Tuesdays I ramble on about Irish theatre history. And then on Thursday evenings, Redmond interrupts me when I try to take 10 minutes to talk about a Greek play in relation to anything but talking about the story. So today was meant to be, and making the point that I'm not looking at that book at all because that refers to the Oedipus legend rather than the Oedipus play. So I was talking about Oedipus the play and Hamlet and how much my son annoys me. I hope I didn't look like I was going to kill him, but I did want to. So I think that's important.
It would be very Greek tragedy of you.
I feel that need to be more hubris involved. I suppose the hubris is thinking that I would have he would let me have 10 to 15 minutes to video this thing. But this is why this happens at 9:30 at night. I have people saying, "Why can't you do it earlier?" It's like, because I'd never be able to. It would be the Redmond show.
I have nothing but sympathy for you parents who have young children at home and are having to live through this quarantine. It's yeah.
Well, we did it on purpose, so no sympathy should be had for us. And there are worse young kids than him. Though by the end of the quarantine, I will have forgotten that. But some of his friends I like. Some of his friends are very good that he has friends. You know, I was pleasantly surprised because I'd always expected, okay, I will love my son. I may not necessarily like him, but he's actually an engaging little lad. Just has to interrupt. He's gotten bigger since you saw him last, Liz.
How
old is he now?
If he'd gotten smaller, it would have been very strange.
I'll tell you, after tonight's performances on a couple of fronts, he may be getting smaller than he is now. Just tempted to put him on a starvation diet till he learns some manners. No. The potatoes have not blight. We'll be fine. Anyway, a better head as we're getting on till midnight itself. Thanks a million, folks. Great to have you in, as always. See you soon.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Liz. Good to talk to you.
Bye.
And end meeting for all.